Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here as we continue the playoffs here in the Veterans of Foreign War Cup Series. This is playoff race number 5, the second race of the second round, pretty much the rubber match race here for the second round before we determine the 8 drivers that will be moving on next week at the Charlotte Roval. It's here today at the high banks of Talladega Superspeedway, the longest oval on the NASCAR circuit. It can hold them 3 wide, 4 wide. The speeds reach over 190 miles per hour. And oh yeah, there's about 12 drivers in the field that are battling for spots into the next round of the playoffs. There's also drivers out there, they're just wanting to go to victory lane here today at the high banks in Alabama. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Samuel Dyer. And Sam, I mean, what a track to have here, a wild card track as we call it, right here in the middle of the playoffs round, with the fact that this could really make or break whether you're advancing or not, regardless of what happens next week at the Charlotte Roval.
Yeah, I mean, for drivers that don't feel comfortable about going to road course racing, this is your moment to win and get in. You need to have a consistent run up here, be up front, make sure you don't make any mistakes, and mainly have the luck to survive any big ones that show up here at Talladega.
We mentioned the fact that there are drivers in the field. They're not battling for the championship. They're just out there to try to win, and that is our front row. You've got Justin Levine back here for Rush Fenway Racing. He's grabbed the pole position by a pretty good margin. You may think, well, 5/100ths, that doesn't seem like very much, but at a super speedway, just about 1,000th of a second is a lot, as Curtis Sawyer is going to start alongside him there on the front row. Then you go back to Vincent Arthur and Zach York. Those 2 drivers right now, 7th and 8th in the points currently, as it looks like actually the 6 is being hit with an EOL, possibly for not having the correct contigs. So he will actually be EOLing, turns the race, or the pole, I believe, over to the 24 of Vincent Arthur. But both those drivers, York 8 points ahead of the cut line, Vincent Arthur just a measly 6 points ahead of the cut line. James Love and John Mullins going to roll off from row 3. Some of the guys that are back here, though, in the field, it's not necessarily a bad thing to start towards the rear of the field here at Talladega, Sam, because it's so easy to work your way to the front.
Yeah, it really is. It only takes about 3 to 4 laps if you hook up with someone else to move from the back of the pack up to the front if you're working on the high side. But with Talladega being so big, it really is easy for drivers to go 3 wide, 4 wide, and sometimes even 5 wide at this course. So drivers are going to be trying to manipulate their way to get up to the front as fast as possible, but drivers going to be trying different strategies. We're going to have drivers that decide to stay in the back and just survive and wait for that caution to come out, while others are deciding, I want to be up front, be that lead car, and stay in the top 10 all race long.
Well, looks like our starting grid is going to get jumbled up a little bit here under pacing. Not only did the 6 of Justin Levine have to fall back, but also the 12 of Curtis Sawyer had to fall back to the rear of the field. So your front row now, when we go green, will be playoff contenders Vincent Arthur and Zach York. Of course, after the mayhem of the second half of last week's Las Vegas race, Ty McWhirter, the winner there, is locked into the next round of the playoffs, so he can come here to Talladega completely worry-free. Boyd Hogan at this point is also locked into the next round as he is 50 points ahead of the cut line, but everybody else from about 3rd on down through 12th, a lock and change in the span of these 94 laps.
Yeah, I mean, last week was insane. You had only 7 drivers on the lead lap, and then carnage. All of them were taken out, and the driver we were talking about all race long, of Ty McWhirter, somehow won the thing when we were counting him out for probably about 4/5 of the race.
Coming down through the tri-oval, as opposed to Daytona, where the start-finish line would be back there. It's down here, headed down towards the entrance of Turn 1. Could be a difference maker today, as we're underway here this evening at Talladega.
Talladega's going to be quick. You're going to be staying 2x2 for a while here, and expect these drivers to continue the runs that they're going in. That inside line is where you want to be most of the way, but you're waiting for that car second on that inside line. He's going to be making those big moves to the front.
Hendrick Motorsports hooked up there on the bottom line with Vincent Arthur. He's got James Love right behind him on the top side. A couple of different manufacturers working together. The Toyota Camry of Zach York being pushed by the Chevrolet of Chris Noble.
And Chris Noble, someone that has a chance to really get a good finish here today. Not in the points really chase at all, but still a driver looking for good momentum to push forward into the next season.
And we have to remember what's at stake here for these playoff drivers that are not yet locked in. If they go to victory lane here today, they head into the elimination race of the Charlotte Roval knowing they are going to move on to the round of 8 along with Ty McWhirter and Boyd Hogan. You know something I found interesting, Sam? I thought, let's look back through the statistics, see who some of the favorites are to possibly win here today, just based on how they did in the previous 3 super speedway races that have been run. Only 3 drivers in the field of playoff contenders, only 2 drivers, rather, playoff contenders have finished in the top 5 in any of the super speedway races. Spencer Tart has 2 top 5 finishes at the season opening Daytona race and the first Talladega race. Boyd Hogan's the only other one in that top 5, came back in the second Daytona race.
I mean, Boyd Hogan's just been consistent all season long. That's why he has the most wins this season and probably our favorite to win the championship overall. He even said coming into the playoffs, he wanted to sweep the playoffs. Hasn't been able to do that, but still has won a lot of races so far since round 1 to round 2.
And you have to think that this was possibly the race circled on the calendar for Spencer Tart in that Stewart-Haas Racing entry. Just based on the fact, he's going to drop to the back there. That's the car down the apron on the back straightaway. But just based on the fact that he's coming into this race in one of the 4 elimination spots. Right now, 16 points behind the cutoff line.
Yeah, looking for these front runners to have issues, which is completely possible. I mean, we have seen a lot of super speedway races where drivers that have been up front, there can be a wreck just up front that wipes out about half the cars that are in this field. So you never know how these Talladega races are going to go. Sometimes they can even stay green from start to finish.
We're going to about maybe go 3 wide for the lead. No, not quite. That middle line worked for Zach York and Caden Rush. They're going to tuck down in front of the Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolets. On the top side, it's the Blue Ovals. Justin Levine being pushed there by Curtis Sawyer. They've got Ty Cole. And now Caden Rush is going to move up and get a push here. Now side by side between Rush and York going into 3.
Caden Rush looking for a solid day today. He's needing to get some redemption, and really a driver we expected to be a part of our Final 4 entering playoffs. So needing a good day here is Caden Rush.
Of course, Caden Rush has some great numbers when it comes to the road courses, so certainly would have the confidence going into the Charlotte Roval, but doesn't have to rely on maybe a must-win situation. Caden comes into this race 16 points ahead of the cut line, and you would normally think that's a pretty good cushion here with only 2 races left in the round of 12, but due to the fact of so many drivers in the field here tonight, a lot of spots and a lot of points can be lost.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big disadvantage sometimes for these playoff drivers when you go to the speedways. Everyone wants to show up, everyone wants to have a good time, and that means that your potential of losing a lot of tires is, oh no, contact up front.
That's Curtis Sawyer in the 12 has gone around. Looks like he has been able to save it. No, he is not. Boyd Hogan, his teammate, might have gotten a piece of it there in the 2. Ty Cole is involved. Looks like just about all the Fords that were trying to make that third line work.
It just looked like maybe a wrong bump on the quarter panel on the straightaway entering the corner, which is a awful spot to give someone a bump. You want to give a bump in the middle of the straightaway or possibly coming out of the corner, but not entering the corner where your car can be very loose on entry.
We're going to have to obviously look back at the replay, but I find it really surprising that it's actually the Fords having the difficulty with that, because of all 3 manufacturers, I've been told the Mustangs are actually the easiest ones to line up the bumpers because the nose is somewhat flat.
Yeah, but even if it's easy to line up with, you can always get the momentum, and your closing rate is a lot faster than you expect, and just hit another car in front of you on the quarter panel when you didn't expect to. So easy checkups can affect you, and consistency you're hoping for, but those simple mistakes costly for some of these drivers.
Looks like actually really only 2 drivers got caught up in that one. Boyd Hogan got on the brakes down the inside line, so he was not involved. Looks like Sawyer and Cole may have been the 2 that got involved, and we've seen it before, and especially it happens here at these super speedways. The lag, the warp, saving that 27 of Dalton Collins, because the 34 was spun right down into him at one point.
Yeah, and those are the moments that you gotta just hold on tight and hope for the best, and luckily able to get through that one cleanly.
So it didn't take long. Lap 5, our first caution of the day is, wow, we're going to have to go on board there with Ryan Strunk. I don't know how he was able to come to a stop quickly enough to avoid the 34 of Ty Cole spinning down in front of him, but Gives these drivers a chance now. I mean, they've been sitting in their cars. They've been waiting to roll out there. The adrenaline has been at an all-time high. They've taken it 3 wide with that adrenaline. Now it's a chance to calm down, kind of assess what's been going on. Maybe get yourself into a little bit of a calmer green flag run next time we go green.
Yeah, hoping that these drivers can just cool off for a second, but you never know. I mean, everything can change in a blink of an eye here at Talladega, just like you saw.
Of the drivers that were involved in that wreck, neither one of them were playoff contenders. But you alluded to the fact that no matter where you are in the field, no matter where you are on the track, that big one always looms. These drivers have to continually keep that in the back of their mind, especially after we were at a simple mile-and-a-half track where we saw a lot of green flag racing last week at Las Vegas, and look how that ended up for a lot of our playoff drivers.
Yeah, just one simple mistake costed a whole entire front five last week. We weren't even at a super speedway, and honestly, a lot of machines lucky that they did not have more contact, and this could have wiped out really our whole entire front runners and our whole entire pack really in just one fell swoop.
Now let's take an opportunity here as we have had a number of drivers hit pit road here under this caution. I believe only the top 4 have decided to stay out. Just to give an overview here of how Talladega could certainly shake things up playoff-wise of who is where in the current standings. Right now, the drivers are basically focused on are third on down through 12th, obviously. Taylor Butcher-Benjamin, he's 23 points ahead of the cut line. I'd say that if the 11 is able to salvage a top 10 here today, he could probably have pointed his way into the playoffs regardless of next week at Charlotte Roval. Caden Rush was 16 points ahead. He's 4th. Ryan Strunk, who we were just on board with and saw that great avoidance, he's 5th, 14 points ahead of the cut line. Chad Gunnisman is 10 points up in 6th. 8 points ahead is Zach York in 7th. Right now, that cutoff line driver is your race leader, Vincent Arthur. He's 6 points right now ahead of that cut line. The drivers that are trying to race their way in or win their way in right now, Chris Hansen in the 20 is 6 points back. Oscar Jensen, he is 11 points back. We've already talked about Spencer Tart, 2 top 5s here at Super Speedways this season. He's 16 points back. And Joseph Piscota, 36 points back. He's not necessarily in a must-win situation yet, but something tells me if he can't finish that 9 car up at least in the top 10, if not the top 5, he could be going into the Charlotte Roval in a must-win situation.
Yeah, and really, Piscotto was a driver that I was really expecting to do well. I mean, just based off the consistency from that first round, and also the final about 3 or 4 races of the regular season, Piscotto was a driver that was a dark horse, as well as Vincent Arthur, to really pull their own and possibly make it in the round of 8.
Yeah, he was up there inside of the top 5, I believe, in back-to-back weeks at both Darlington and Richmond to either end off the regular season and start the playoffs. And you're right, definitely a bit of a dark horse driver. It's interesting, too, because you've got kind of a split situation here. We've got a number of teammates that are able to work together in the field tonight. You've got the 24 of Vincent Arthur, 88 of James Love, 48 of Brandon Andrews. They decide to all stay out. However, Joseph Piscota in the 9 decided to come back down pit road, top off the fuel tank. So while his 3 teammates will be starting beside the top 4, Piscota's going to be all the way back in the 19th position.
Which isn't a horrible place. You could still come back from where you're at right now and just lingering and waiting. I mean, you can make a lot of good friends in the back just by staying there. And, a lot of drivers are probably, if you're in the back, are going to stay there. You might see some front runners decide, hey, it's better off for me to be in the back instead of up front.
Lights are out atop the pace car. We're going to get ready to go back green flag racing. Vincent Arthur is going to be the on point alongside of James Love. Ty McWhirter and Brandon Andrews will make up row 2. Those 4 drivers did not pit under this caution. Zach York and Caden Rush, they are the highest up there. I believe that they went with fuel only on their pit stop. They'll start 5th and 6th. Justin Levine, Justin Carey, Spencer Tart, and John Mullins going to complete the top 10 as the pace car is going to make the left-hand turn back down pit road.
And through the long trial they have to go. I mean, I was talking with Tyler Riggs about this on Wednesday, and this trial, your nerves just start to boil up, and green flag up in the air.
You see right there, James Love and Brandon Andrews both kind of wanting to duck down, but they can't change lanes before the start-finish line. Now they're going to try and do it. They were trying to get all three Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolets lined up, but had to make sure they weren't going to get a restart penalty.
And they took off pretty quick than what you usually see here at Talladega, which has now strung out everyone out in the field. No one's really connected. Our front row is pretty all single filed up except for the two cars on the outside.
Yeah, and let's see what they're able to do here. Maybe two-car tandem a bit here with everybody else broken up. Caden Rush shoving the back bumper of Zach York, but now that momentum's getting lost as there's about 4 or 5 cars down in the bottom working against the 2 cars in the top.
Yeah, you're starting to see everyone owns York. Woo! And that's that part of coming out of the corner where you got that looseness and it carries on through the tri-oval, so drivers have to stay focused. It's on the exit of the tri-oval, though, where there's some drivers that are going to be a little bit nervous.
One of the more treacherous parts of the racetrack there in the tri-oval. I was watching the NASCAR Truck Series race today. They had Kurt Busch as the special driver commentator, and I loved the term that he used there in the tri-oval, that the car's not able to load there. It doesn't know if it's on a straightaway or in a corner. It just doesn't know what to do with itself.
Yeah, and you will see that a ton where drivers just don't know. I mean, the car doesn't know, the drivers don't really know. It's more of hope that it sticks on where you're going, and sometimes you wiggle around. But so far, everyone's staying clean at the moment as we are on lap 10, coming to 11 as they're going through the tri-oval.
Obviously, for a lot of these drivers, there's a lot on the line here today, an opportunity to be able to move on to the round of 8. So you have to wonder, the situation we're seeing right here. Obviously, James Love, Brandon Andrews, they seem fully committed to keeping the 24 Vincent Arthur out in front. He's the cutoff line driver right now. But if it comes down to it at the end of this race, I mean, do they stick to that plan and try and help push the 24 to victory lane? I mean, usually on the last lap, it's every man for himself.
I mean, usually, but I mean, it matters on what team orders are. If you came into this race and your team communicated saying, hey, we are trying to get one of our teammates into the next round, and you see that your teammate is leading this race, you are shoving them and pushing them to the win, and it's all about the team game at the end of the season.
Driving a race car at Talladega looks easy. This is on board with Spencer Tart, and you can just see, while it may be called a straightaway, these cars are going anywhere but straight. They are darting left, darting right, literally floating through the corners here. These guys have got their hands full, and of course as well, we document this all season, but sometimes we kind of forget about it at Super Speedway. This is an open setup league, so these drivers making some little tweaks with gear ratios, with grill tape, all that type of stuff to try and have their car as aerodynamically sound and fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own car set up the way they want. The driver that we've been really coming into this season as the one that should win this championship, Boyd Hogan in 11th place, last car in this front pack, just lingering around with Greg Newsom there in the 3 as they're watching everyone else up front, 2 by 2 by 2.
Yeah, Boyd Hogan, while he has been dominant at most other tracks, super speedways have not exactly been his strong suit. He did have a top 5 run, a runner-up finish at the last race of Daytona, finishing second to Logan Helton, but you can see right now a little hesitant to get up here and mix it up with the top 10.
Yeah, and as those two are kind of just waiting to see what our top 10 are going to do, back in 12th place, leading this second pack that are trying to get in line so they can start catching up to our front group. That's going to be Chad Gunsman in the 22 machine. Only issue, they're about 5 seconds back from our leader.
Some fast cars are in that group as well, and a number of playoff contenders amongst them with the 22, the 9, the 77, the 47, and the 11 all back in this second pack. So either they've got to make up a lot of ground right now and hope that that first pack gets racing. Either that or they're going to have to hope for a caution because, as you said, they're losing time to the front group.
Yeah, it's just the fact that this front group is a slightly bigger than the cars behind him. Also in this second group are cars that are damaged, while everyone else in this front pack, they're all clean. They've got fresh cars, but we're starting to see this front pack has been splitting up slightly and really are kind of all scrambled everywhere.
Justin Carey in the 21. The Wood Brothers Ford has been able to move up to the 4th position with Ty McWhirter in 5th. Then, as you mentioned, that split back here to 6th place Spencer Tartan. I'm not really sure what happened with the Hendrick Chevrolets. They were up there battling for the race lead, and all of a sudden they've drifted back to 7th through 9th.
Now, something to watch out for is when are we going to be seeing these drivers think about pitting, as all the Hendrick drivers have dropped back to be with one another. So they're kind of just waiting and lingering now, single filed up. You've got Greg Newsom and Boyd Hogan there now. It might be a fact that they might be thinking about a different strategy here compared to the rest of the field, as everyone now single file.
Top 5 all here nose to tail. Then you got a little bit of a gap back to Spencer Tart. Looks like he may have just latched onto this group. Vincent Arthur leading the second group, and that Boyd Hogan, yeah, he's going to try and see if he can make a move around Greg Newsom by himself, and he will complete the pass there. Boy, that's actually really impressive. If all by your lonesome with no aid of draft from anybody, you can pass around the long way of the racetrack for position at Talladega.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the fact that utilizing the draft is Boyd Hogan now going to try to pass all the Hendrick guys by himself. I doubt he can do this because he needs just a little bit more draft help. But this two machine's trying some bold moves now, side by side with the 88. And he's probably going to lose all this momentum as now Greg Newsom back on the tail end and might make the pass here on the 2.
Kind of ironic that he's driving for Penske Racing because it reminds me so much of what Joey Logano will try doing on his own at the Super
he's
Speedway.
doing it.
Oh boy, Justin Carey was out of shape further up there in a battle for the 3rd position between himself
Boyd,
and Zach York.
Oh my goodness. Boyd Hogan did it. He passed all the Hendrick drivers on his own. This 2 machine might have been just playing a possum because he is coming.
And now he's going to get to the back bumper of Spencer Tart. He was thinking about going 3 wide by himself. Tart saw that 2 car was flying. He's trying to pick him up as a drafting partner, going 3 wide up top.
They're going to go 3 wide, and only thing I can see here is Tart being pushed, and he is coming. Here comes the 2 and the 10 on the high side, 3 wide for the lead.
Saw how the 2 was locked right to the rear bumper of the 10 of Spencer Tart. That's what you've got to do on these straightaways to generate the best speed possible. The tighter the draft, the faster you're going to go. But now, as you see, they've broken up. That inside line pulls ahead again. Justin Levine clears back for the lead. And actually, I'm almost thinking Boyd Hogan is actually dropping back, maybe because of the fact could have been running into some overheating problems there, being so close up for so long in the back of Spencer Tart.
Yeah, I mean, you can really stick onto someone's back bumper for about a lap to 3 laps is the most you can go without blowing up. And at this moment, and we've been driving for so long, it's better off to back off, give your engine some space to cool off a bit, and then get back out there. I mean, you've already shown you got a fast car. You can push the 10 to the lead. There's no point of really challenging anyone just yet. You've already showed your plan. That is what the goal is at the end of this race. Now it's all about surviving to the end.
You saw Justin Levine. He saw Justin Carey getting a run there on the top side. He moved up. Caden Rush moved up the block. Levine says, all right, thank you. I'll take the inside line. Now he's on the back bumper of the 19. Very interesting, the fact that whoever goes to victory lane here today, it'll be their first Super Speedway win of the season, as the past 3 Super Speedway races we've run, 2 at Daytona, 1 at Talladega, none of our previous winners are in the field here tonight. David Wright won the season opening Daytona race. We saw Logan Helton win the second Daytona race a few weeks ago, and Carl Dodson was the winner of the first Talladega race. So we're guaranteed a brand new Super Speedway winner here tonight.
And honestly, with all the drivers we have been seeing up here in our top 11, none of them could possibly win in this race. I mean, yes, they're running well, but there could be a big one that brings everyone else back up together, and someone that's in the second group could easily win this race.
A couple of drivers we know that will not is Boyd Hogan. That's a terrible place to be blinking, right in the middle of the lead pack, but a few drivers we know will not be winning this race. Ty Cole, who was involved in that incident back on lap 5, he's brought his number 34 to the garage area. Curtis Sawyer, who was also caught up in the wreck, still sits on pit road getting damage repaired. He's fallen 13 laps down. And right now we've got Brendan Burcroft, a former winner from the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series. He's right now in the 21st position, 2 laps down. He started a couple laps late from pit road, as Boyd Hogan, all that time that I was talking, it took him that amount of time to get from 5th up to the lead.
Yeah, he was just marching his way, finding any spot he could find to fit that 2 machine. He put it there, and now he's been making his way forward, and now up to the point to get a lap lead.
So Boyd Hogan now, after slicing and dicing his way through the field, going to be having to keep an eye on his mirror to make sure that no run gets generated in an attempt to take the race lead away. Mention the fact that Boyd Hogan, at the last Super Speedway race, finished 2nd. Highest of the full-time drivers, to a driver that came up from the National Series, Logan Helton. to be able to take part and took that checkered flag away from Boyd Hogan. So Hogan looking for a little bit of super speedway redemption here today at Talladega.
Yeah, and with how much we were just seeing our front row and our front pack scrambling like they were, it actually allowed that second pack behind them to gain a second. But the only issue is now they're up to 4 seconds and losing that time all the way back once this front pack gets single filed up again.
One thing I'm noticing, aside from Spencer Tart, the other 3 drivers that came into Talladega in trouble below the cut line, all 3 not doing so well. Joseph Piscota, who was the furthest down in points right now in that second group in 13th place, but the other 2 drivers who were within striking distance of moving their way up into the top 8 in the standings right now, Oscar Jensen and Chris Hansen, they're back right now in the 19th and 20th position. You brought up the possibility that we could end up seeing, some long green flag runs, maybe even see the green flag out for the remainder of this race. I mean, these guys have put themselves in a little bit of a sticky situation.
Yeah, they could easily see this front group. Here's the thing, though. This front group, yes, they are running quick, but they could easily all make mistakes under pit road and lose all this time that they have gained. So just because they're running up front and they have a massive gap at this point of about 3.5 seconds over that second pack, which counting from Greg Newsom to Chad Gunsman, that isn't much of a gap, but if you make a mistake, you could find yourself behind that second pack when coming out of the pits.
Well, of course, folks, the month of October is nationally recognized as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and a lot of drivers here in the field tonight sporting the pink. Looking at Chris Noble, Joseph Piscota, Ryan Strunk has got some pink on his car. You've got a lot of pink machines in Justin Carey, Zach York, Caden Rush up there at the front. Well, FRN is partnering with the National Breast Cancer Foundation as well. You can notice we've got pink logo here on our ticker for the entire month of October. We're going to be holding a fundraiser during the entire month as well. If you'd like to contribute, please check out the link in the broadcast description to support a great cause and help provide care and support for women facing breast cancer at every step. Any donation you could do is greatly appreciated, and looking forward to seeing if we can help to be able to create some change here, as obviously terrible disease affects many lives of many people as well as their family and friends.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some family and friends that have been affected by breast cancer, and so it's always great to see when people come together in October to really help and spread awareness and be able to fund money and help the organizations out the best that they can. And just know that it's not only in October. You can help throughout the year by sending out your donations to help out these foundations. But back to the racing action, scrambling has happened now as the 2 and the 6 have fallen back, and they're now the 2 cars in the back of the pack.
Levine started this race, well, he was scheduled to start this race from the pole position before EOLing at the start. Boyd Hogan fought his way from the midway portion of the pack all the way up there to the front. You'll notice here as well a nice feature that they have here with these particular cars at super speedways. At normal speedways, that spoiler that's on the back there of Ty McWhirter is completely red, but you'll notice there's a bit of a window effect up there at the top. That's to give the drivers that added visibility to be able to see what's behind them, if a driver is behind them pushing them or trying to make a move. And so obviously you know that that's a piece of equipment these drivers will be utilizing all through this race, especially in the closing stages.
Yeah, and now it's time to see when drivers are going to come into the pits. That window that these drivers are always looking for pit stops, it's starting to come up and creep up on these drivers. Probably around lap 30 to 40 around there, we're going to be seeing spontaneous drivers coming in. So here in the next 5 laps, we might be seeing pit stops.
And some of the drivers we'll have to keep our eyes on in that regard would be the 24, the 48, the 88, and the 96, because those were the 4 drivers that stayed out under the last caution. Everybody else came to pit road at least for fuel, if not maybe taking on some tires. That's another thing we got to bring up as well. All season long, these drivers are given a limited number of tires they're able to use during the course of a race. Only 3 sets allowed for these drivers in this 94 lapper.
So the one that they've got on and 2 in the pit road to work with. That's what all 3 sets are for. Here it comes. That's 6 and the 2. They finally got hooked up. They're making that outside line work. Here comes the 10 as well. And that second pack is caught up. You've got Gunzman on the inside trying to make a lot of moves. Scrambling is going to happen even more. That we've got even more machines up here. We once had 11 drivers. Now we're back to almost 20.
Dalton Collins, Chad Gunnisman, Joseph Biscotta, they were all 1, 2, 3 of that second pack. They've all now cracked the top 10 as Gunnisman looking to the inside of Justin Carey. That is for 7th. Meanwhile, you talked about the 6 and the 2 making moves. They've now moved back up to the front of the field again. And this is almost looking very similar to what we've seen in some other Talladega races where you see the typical pack racing, but there's also occasions where 2 cars can lock up so well and move from 7th and 8th up to the top 2, but then they got to stop pushing, they drop to the back again.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where Boyd Hogan has now done it twice with 2 different machines. He is someone that can get you up front. Now, Boyd Hogan is so quick. Now in the middle of this pack, you've got Chad Gunzman trying to get some help to push that 22 on the 3rd lane, but he's going to need a lot more momentum to get moving forward, and I think he might be getting a little bit of help there as more cars are starting to drift up.
Now, is it just coincidence that the 2 cars that he worked with to be able to work his way to the front, Spencer Tart and Justin Levine, are fellow Fords?
I think it could be coincidence, but also it could be drivers that are in his team chat. A lot of these drivers during super speedway races have about 5 to sometimes 10 drivers in their team chat, so they can always communicate with one another. That is something that is possible that these drivers are doing right now.
Well, I talked about Oscar Jensen and Chris Hansen maybe being a little bit of a situation. Hansen's still towards the rear of the field. Jensen, however, he was following that second pack. He's now up here into the top 10 in that JTG Daughtery Chevrolet.
These drivers are just running as hard as they can right now and putting on a great show as they're now 2 by 2 up front. Everyone else behind them is all single filed up, and now's the time where you kind of have to be a little bit nervous. You got a lot more drivers up here. A lot more mistakes can happen as Gunzman gets shuffled to the apron, able to find some space back on the racing surface, but with more drivers, some drivers you really haven't been racing with all race long, you gotta reset and figure out, how do I run with this person again?
And you saw back there in turns 1 and 2, that outside line car of Oscar Jensen pinning down Dalton Collins on the bottom. At the same time, Dalton Collins was getting tight and pushing up. The more that these drivers run each other out of room, the more likely it is we could end up seeing the dreaded big one here at Talladega.
Yeah, and we're getting so close when these drivers need to be thinking about pitting that it's getting slightly nerve-wracking up front, especially with Boyd Hogan's blinking, with him coming in and out every once in a while up there, with drivers such as the 00 and to the 21 and others, and the 6. I mean, drivers that are all around Boyd Hogan right now. There's a chance for them to accidentally make contact, and if you see a car blink and you run into them and they blink back into the race, there's a chance chaos could happen.
You saw Justin Carey there in the 21, got shuffled to the top side. He's going to the back, and that's something that I've seen in practice with these drivers. They were trying to figure out how to line up the bumpers, but a lot of drivers, just because there's so much movement down the straightaways, having difficulty lining those bumpers up. If they end up making just the slightest bit of contact, they have to check up, make sure they don't wreck, and that allows everybody else to pass them by.
Completely, and they're just continuously trying to make sure they can carry that momentum forward, but not really wasting it in any fashion.
Boyd Hogan, Justin Levine continue to show the way. They now look to their right. A couple that have been working together all night long. The 19 of Zach York, the 00 of Caden Rush continue to try and forge their way to the front. They've got help. Oscar Jensen and Spencer Tart up there with them as well.
You know, with having so many drivers that are on the cusp of being close to the bubble of being eliminated if they don't have a good run here today or next week, you might be seeing some of these drivers that are on the high side, but you're trying to make any move that they can to get this win, because next week it's going to be so difficult for a lot of these drivers to get the win. Caden Rush, yes, he's been dominant at road courses, but I really don't think that he wants to really force himself to win on the last race of a round.
We were following earlier on in this run that trio of Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolets. They still are somewhat in touch here with this lead pack, running maybe about 7-8 car lengths behind the very tail end of the lead group, but still running in single file formation, just keeping their cars clean, keeping them in one piece. It looks like they've actually picked up some allies as well. Looks like the Hendrick Motorsports Chevys and the RCR Chevrolets working together, because I did notice when we saw them fall back earlier on this run, they went back and picked up the 3 of Greg Newsom. They've now also got the 8 of Chris Noble, so safety in numbers, I guess, here for these guys.
Yeah, and they're just staying single file, giving each other plenty of room, while also still holding on to the draft. They can push whenever they feel like they need to, but at the moment, just stay cool and calm. There's still a lot of racing going on. As up front, Zach York making a bold move to the inside.
That's the second time that a block by the 19 has made me think we're going to see the big one. He did it earlier on Vincent Arthur. He did it right there on Boyd Hogan, and when push comes to shove in the closing stages of this race, he was cut a couple of breaks there. The break will not be given to him when we get down to the end of this race.
Could be finding himself sliding across one of these hoods one of these times. Has to be careful and make sure you can trust your spotter. Here at Super Speedways, it's all about trust. If your spotter says you're clear, you got to make a move or at least hold your line and make sure you are not cutting anyone else off.
Another thing you want to do as well is be a diplomat here at the Super Speedways. Prove that you know what you're doing and that you're fast, and everybody will want to work with you. If you're doing something like Zach York just did, you might not be making very many friends out there that are willing to push you to the checkered flag.
Driver Oscar Jensen at 47 leading that outside line now, and Caden Rush says, no, I'll block you. 3 wide, which then shuffles the 47 to the outside, all on his lonesome and 3 wide.
Oscar Jensen thought about taking his momentum up to the top side, and Justin Levine was not willing to go up there with him. Now as Jensen tucks in behind the 27 of Dalton Collins. I mentioned the fact as well that the only 2 playoff contenders that have top 5s here at Super Speedways this season, the 2 of Boyd Hogan and the 10 of Spencer Tart. However, there are a couple of other drivers here that are still looking to go to victory lane that got top 5 runs in our second Daytona race. Dalton Collins finished 3rd in that. He's right now in 2nd. And Greg Newsom finished top 5 at Daytona as well. He's currently riding back in the 16th position.
I mean, Dalton Collins, ever since he has started racing in the Veterans of Foreign Wars Cup Series, he's just shown speed, shown that he's got the pace to get a win. And this 27 machine, do not hold back. He could possibly be winning this thing at the end of this.
I don't want him to think we've forgotten him because we haven't given him much TV time, but Ty McWhirter in the 96, the reason we haven't really talked much about him is because we already know for absolute certain he is going to be moving on to the next round, but having that weight off his shoulders, he's been keeping that 96 up here inside of the top 10. Don't think that he's not going to be aggressive here in the closing stages. Try and see if he can pick up back-to-back victories because he's got nothing to lose.
I'm really loving what this 96 is doing. He's just been staying 4th in line, sometimes 3rd in line on the inside, and just holding that spot. Letting everyone else make some crazy moves, but just making himself look like he has a decent car and not having to really prove himself just yet.
Yeah, the Toyotas find themselves coming into this race completely outnumbered. There's only 4 of them in the field, 3 of the Joe Gibbs racing cars, and of course, Ty McWhirter out of Gaunt Brothers Racing. So obviously, you got to think there's some alliances that are going to be going on there between the Camrys, but they're probably going to have to find a few more friends that are willing to hook up with them. Right now, you've got a couple of them nose to tail, in York in 4th and McWhirter in the 5th position. We'll see if Ty McWhirter is willing to try and help push that 19 to the front.
Oscar Jensen going to drop back, and we were talking about how those Hendrick drivers were lingering back and waiting. Well, that back part of the field is now 2x2. They are not feeling too comfortable at the moment.
Here comes Ty McWhirter. The green flag pit stops begin as he'll come to pit road with the Hendrick cars that hadn't pitted before. Chris Hansen is on pit road, as well as Brendan Burkroff as well.
It makes sense. Now's the time. They've been out there for 39 laps, and it's a window that a lot of these drivers are going to be aiming for. Due to them pitting now, probably in the next about 8 to 10 laps, we'll be seeing most of the rest of the field coming in around that time, maybe a little bit earlier or a little bit later than that, as these drivers are going to be trying to aim for possibly pitting around lap 55.
Well, pit road obviously is so important at any racetrack, but maybe no more so as we got more drivers pitting. no more so than a super speed. We saw with Chris Hansen messing up on his pit stop. That's going to lose him time, possibly
Oh
lose him that
no!
pack.
I think that might have been the 00, possibly, that overshot. No, it was the 21. Justin Carey overshot pit entry and found himself completely stopped on the track. No yellow flag, but he's going to be all his lonesome. Looks like he might be spinning out again on the straightaway, trying to bring out a caution. Possibly, as this 21 machine is just not really getting going, just sitting in the middle of the course.
I think the big problem for him is he's worn those tires down getting on the brakes. He's down in a lower gear on the banking of the trioval, which was causing the wheel spin, almost having him spin out. He finally gets the thing rolling as we still remain green.
Based on the cars that are just coming out now, there is going to be a good group of about 6 that are coming out. Leading that way is going to be the Justin Levine. It's going to be leading that with Dalton Collins, Chad Gunzman, Spencer Tart, Justin Piscota, and Boyd Hogan. Those are the 6 machines that got out of pit road cleanly and are the ones to watch out for as this lead pack are still charging. And if this group of 6 don't get going, they could be finding themselves a lap down.
What group did not do so well in coming to pit road? And that was the first group. We saw Chris Hansen have some issues. Vincent Arthur came out all by his lonesome. I mean, all those Hendrick cars, they are all split up right now. Ty McWhirter, you saw there in the 96. Nobody seemed to really come out with anybody. That was good as far as execution coming to pit road, not so much so in leaving pit road.
Well, with the caution, the driver's getting that extra lap from staying out. I'm nervous for the drivers that have pitted this early on lap 40. I don't think they can make it to the end here on fuel. So they might have to figure out how to make another short stop while our front 8 drivers still driving, still trying to just chug along. It might be in safe mode to possibly turn this into a one-stop from here on out.
If we look at when those drivers came to pit lane back around laps 39 to 40, that means that since we had gone back green, they were able to make it somewhere in the vicinity of about 31 to 32 laps on 1 tank of fuel. As we had a couple of drivers that had actually come to pit road under the first caution to top off the fuel tank that pitted early as well. So I agree with you. I don't really think that anybody from that first 2 groups that came to pit road can make it the rest of the way on fuel. And I'm not necessarily certain if these guys that have stayed out, if they'd be able to make it the rest of the way on fuel if they came to pit road somewhere in the next 8 to 10 laps.
Right now, they are aiming for lap 55. If they can hit that marker, they're for sure good to go to the end, as our leader is just motioned coming into the pits.
Caden Rush, undoubtedly Zach York will be coming with him. Here they come to pit lane. Oscar Jensen's going to follow as well.
Ooh. The 13 cars staying out as they are scattering in the back and almost missing pit road.
And there was contact there between Caden Rush and Zach York coming onto pit lane. You could visibly see the damage on the right front of the 19 of York, and you'd have to wonder how that's going to affect him for the rest of the race. It's just a little ripple, but even a little ripple can cause turbulence.
As long as there's no engine damage, the 19 should be all right to continue going, but it's going to be massive if he has to stay in the pits longer than anyone else. And it looks like he stays out just a little bit longer to get that damage repaired. Doesn't look like it's too bad, though. Zach York, though, with a love of caution to fully repair that thing. Still out and coming in is the 13 and the 11. It's going to be Mullins as well as Butcher Benjamin.
And this will complete the cycle of pit stops as, wow, Mullins nearly spinning it out there on pit road. A lot of these drivers seem like they're really dealing with lack of rear grip, especially when getting on the brakes headed for that commitment line.
Well, while they're getting going, it looks like the 00, the 19, and the 47 all coming out together. It's going to be a 3-car group, and then following suits a massive group of 8 that are coming and led by Boyd Hogan.
I'm not certain what was going on there with the 2 RCR cars of Greg Newsom and Chris Noble, unless maybe they were sitting in their stalls having to serve a possible speeding penalty, but that's going to cost them dearly.
Oh, they're going to be losing a lap, possibly more than that. As it's, yes, when you're just by yourself, you're losing time. But if you're not in a group of 3 or more, you are losing so much time to the rest of the field.
So now our top 3, after everything's cycled out, Caden Rush, Zach York, Oscar Jensen. You look at where these guys are points-wide. Rush was 16 points ahead of the cut line. York was only 8 points ahead, and Jensen was 11 points back. All 3 of them all been working together here for the last 8 to 10 laps, and they all executed pit road perfectly. Right now, they're enjoying a pretty comfortable advantage over that second group led by Boyd Hogan.
Yeah, let's wait and see, though. In the next 3 laps, we'll see if this second group can catch up to our top 3. And at most 5 laps until I could possibly see this second group catching up. But with Boyd Hogan blinking, leading this back, it could be slowing up this second group from really gaining any time.
Both groups actually have a driver that's having some difficulty with blinking. Oscar Jensen at the tail end of that top trio was blinking a little bit. Boyd Hogan at the head of this second group, blinking just a little bit as well.
I mean, it's better to have a car in the back that's blinking than a car that's leading. Because if you have a car that's leading that's blinking, you have to let off because you don't know where they are. If a car's in the back that's blinking, they can continue pushing forward, and you really don't have to worry about them too much because they're the ones that need to back off.
This is interesting. The 6 of Justin Levine jumping up to the top side looked like on purpose to drop towards the back of this group. Maybe he's also uncomfortable with the fact that 2 was blinking ahead of him.
Well, now we've got our front 3 catching up to the 3, 8, and the 13. We'll see how well they work together here. But right now, side by side.
John Mullins falling a lap down after he came to pit road pretty much by himself. Of course, we already documented the 3 and the 8 of Newsom and Noble getting hit with pit road speeding penalties, which is why they are now trapped a lap down to the leaders. And just to update on the 21 of Justin Carey, he did indeed bring his number 21 down pit road, get service, but he has now lost 1 lap to the leaders because of that with his near spin in the tri-oval. And as these guys are side by side, you've got those 3 leaders on the top, 3 lap machines on the bottom. What was about a 4.5 second gap between the top 3 back to that second group of Boyd Hogan and others, that's getting chipped away about a 10th each lap.
Yeah, and they almost, this front 3 with the 3 lap machines, almost all got in line, which was what they were wanting. But it looked like that Greg Newsom and also Noble just not able to give space to have our front 3 leading this pack. And so it's now clogging everyone up and allowing them to really still stay side by side, losing time. But at the same time, it's crazy. Since there's 6 cars all connected using the draft and moving forward, they're not losing too much time to where they're feeling a little bit out of ease, but now they're getting lined up the way they want to, and now they can start moving as fast as they want.
Caden Rush going to lose the lead, though, after they were having a little bit of difficulty getting organized. So York's going to lead this group with Jensen and Rush behind them, and then the 3 lap machines of Mullins, Noble, and Newsom. And you kind of have the race within the race here as well, because the 13, the 3, and the 8, they're all battling to be the first car 1 lap down should we get a caution.
Yeah, now the real race is on. Do you want to have Noble there, Newsom, or Mullins? And they'll be challenging back and forth most likely throughout this time. As well as Chris Hansen looks like he's up all by his lonesome here. Going to be passed by this front group. We'll see if he can get down and stick with the draft as he's just staying on the high side, giving space.
It's taken this second group 3 laps to cut down 0.4 of a second. They're now running about 3.8 seconds behind the third place car of Caden Rush, as the 2 of Boyd Hogan continues to have blinking problems. And you had before the 6 of Levine behind the 2. He bailed out. You had the 10 of Spencer Tart behind the 2. He's now bailed out, running 4th in line. Nobody seems like they want to run the risk of being up here behind this 2 car for fear he's going to reappear in their race car.
Yeah, and I'm hearing over chat that they're trying to communicate to get drivers situated in the right spot. It's just not working the way they want. As or a lot of the communication that's been going on is actually for this third group that is being led by the 48 machine of Brandon Andrews. So this third pack, this is from 11th on back. They're trying to slowly chip away, but they're about almost 6 seconds back from the second group. Boyd Hogan, though, they've done a great job. They've now cut it down to less than 3.5 seconds. They've got a chance to catch up to this front group, but can they do it?
Interesting here how Talladega, any super speedway, brings about unlikely alliances. You've got a Penske Ford, a couple of Hendrick Chevrolets, Stewart Haas Racing Ford, as well as a Roush Fenway Ford up here in this second group, trying to reel in two Chevrolets and a Toyota that are currently out in front.
Up front, Caden Rush is feeling good now. He's leading the charge. He's got Zach York behind him, and this is where they were feeling the most comfortable between the three machines, where they were starting to pull away. With these 6 cars all lined up in this front pack with the lead machines, or front 3, Caden Rush, Zach York, Oscar Jensen, the 3 cars leading, and the other 3 behind them being lap machines, they can be moving pretty quick, and if anything, just stall out that time that Boyd Hogan was gaining in that second pack.
And what's so interesting here at these super speedways is different drivers have different approaches. Some drivers love to be the one leading a line around. Some other drivers, they prefer to actually be the ones doing the pushing. And it seems like when we've seen these 2 cars tandem up here, it's been mostly York pushing Caden Rush. Apparently Zach York feels the most comfortable when he's trying to line up the front bumper to the back bumper.
Well, you also got to remember, Caden Rush has that front bumper damage, so he really is much better being a pusher than the leader now, as with that damage on his front bumper, he's not going to be cutting the air as smoothly as a driver with a better bumper.
Great point there is Caden Rush's Camaro trying to cut the win for them both. We drop back again to the second group. Just to update right now, 3.5 second separation between the front pack and the second pack, and you know, at some point, if this second group's able to reel them in, I got to go back to when we saw Dalton Collins and Chad Gunisman, Joseph Piscota, that were a second pack that caught the lead group. How much momentum they had, what a run they had, and how they had to try and find places to take that momentum. We could see the same thing again, but this time, it's not just 5 or 6 cars that are going to be doing it. We got about a pack of 8 or 10 back here.
Yeah, I mean, we already know that the 10 and the 6 are quick. Hendrick cars have just been lingering back and waiting for their move until the last 15 laps. So this second pack have all quick drivers that are able to make moves forward and make some fantastic passes. It's more of when and if they can catch this front 3.
Coming into this race, 5th through 11th in the point standings were separated by 30 points. How crazy of a shakeup would it be if a driver that was 36 points back in Joseph Piscota were to find victory lane today? That would shuffle things up so much going into the Roval next week.
It would. It would honestly change a lot of things for these drivers. That, I mean, you got drivers that are in the back looking for good runs. I mean, we were just talking about how the 11 needed a good day. He's back in 14th in this third pack.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're right. He was 23 points ahead of the cut line, and I think that if he had at least finished top 10 here today, he would probably mathematically have enough of a cushion that with a consistent run next week at the Roval, he would point his way into the round of 8. But now it's a little bit more of a question mark on what kind of a gap he's going to have between himself and the cut line if he continues to run and finishes where he currently is right now, scored 14th.
And other drivers, I mean, you've got a lot of other drivers that are here trying to have good points day. I mean, this is awesome for Piscota, running 5th at the moment, but, you know, that whole entire second pack, they're starting to try to figure out how to stay in line as they're shuffling a little bit in the middle of their group. This front pack that we've got our leaders in, I mean, they've got to be feeling a slight frustration seeing Noble and Newsom not staying in line and just kind of being a parachute in the back of holding them back from going even faster.
Riding on board again with Spencer Tart in the 10 machine, and you can visibly see just up ahead, that is that group you were talking about, the 3 leaders and the 3 lap machines. What is translated with what we're visually seeing is just a tick above 3 seconds between this second group and that lead pack.
But from the time that we've seen our leaders get up to speed to where we're at right now, that second pack has only gained about 1.5 seconds in over 10 laps, which we're going to be seeing our next green flag pit stop here probably in the next about 25 laps or so.
Yeah, I would definitely think it'd be 20 to 25 laps, and that should be the last time these drivers would have to come to pit lane as well. Some drivers came to pit road under the first caution, did not take tires, went with fuel only, so they would have an extra set of tires still available to them if they make this green flag pit stop here, just in case we end up having to go into some kind of overtime green-white checkered.
Yeah, and honestly, due to overtime and the potential chance of overtime, the best opportunity for the window to open to feel like you're good for the rest of the regular race, the scheduled time, and overtime would probably be around lap 65 for these drivers. Once you get around there, that's probably the opening for pitting there, and you're good to the end. While most of these drivers that are just going to run it as far as they can go, they're looking for probably around lap 75 to 80 to be their final pit stop.
I can't get over, I mean, even these guys up here in this lead group are all running single file. There's nobody side-by-side racing, and even then, it seems so difficult for Zach York to be able to hold a straight line down the back straightaway. I mean, darting left and right and left and right. And I don't think it's a trying to get clean air to the grill kind of play. I think it's just the fact he's really struggling with the aerodynamics that car is feeling down the back straightaway.
It's a mixture of things going on right now. Zach York is so close to that front bump, that back bumper of Caden Rush, that the bobbing and weaving, yes, it looks like he's losing control, which sometimes coming out of the corner, yes, but usually down the straightaway, it's because he's trying to get air into the radiator just a little bit so that engine does not blow up and you keep enough fresh air going to that 19 machine.
Right now, looking at where everybody is running, it looks like Oscar Jensen, running in the third position, is going to make up some good ground heading into the Charlotte Roval, but I don't think that enough drivers that he's battling with are struggling for him to be able to capitalize. He was 6 points behind Vincent Arthur. Arthur's up there in sixth, so he's only gained about 3 points on him. Zach York running ahead of him in the second position. Chad Gunisman's up in 9th place. Ryan Strunk's in 11th. So even though this 47 car is having a great day, he needs a lot of the guys around him in points to be struggling here today. Get involved in a wreck, fall and lose the lead draft or something like that.
Well, we're about 20 laps away from green flag pit stops, but you are watching the A to Z overhead doors Talladega Racing. That second pack, they're set. It's there. It's time to see ourselves with over 20 cars in a full pack.
And now we're probably going to go back to the side-by-side racing, maybe the three-wide racing we saw early on in this thing, as it's going to be the top side. It's Ford, Spencer Tart, and Justin Levine. Look at them two-car tandem their way up inside of the top 5.
Something to watch out for. Both the first and the second groups all had lap machines mingled with the lead lap cars. So this isn't a full section of lead lap cars in this group. This is only your top 10 of lead lap cars with about 5 to 6 lap cars involved. The rest of the field is back in that now second group being led by, I believe, that is Ryan Strunk in the 77 machine.
How long can Justin Levine push the 10 of Spencer Tart before those water temps start spiking? Looks like there's your answer right there. Had to back off of the 10 machine. They made it up at least to the race lead, 3 wide battling, but just couldn't keep it up there, or else the 6 had a chance of blowing up.
Still 3 wide action. This is the battle now for 4th place as you got yourself a lot of cars, hot and heavy. Drivers that have been up front. Zach York on the inside, trying to continue to hold on and keep on that 3rd place position. And you've got other machines. You got a lap car of the 13, hold 4th in the row, as well as the 21. Oh my goodness, that's Justin Carey, who we saw miss pit road, spinning on the front stretch, did not bring out a yellow flag on green flag pit stops, but is still in this front pack. He's just a lap down compared to the rest of the field out here.
24, Vincent Arthur, who was the...
Car's coming in.
And it's going to be, I believe, the 10 of Spencer Tart that's going to begin this round of pit stops here. So my guess is the fuel window is open for these drivers to make it the rest of the way now. These are the short pitters.
Yeah, the window is open to where you are good to make it to the end of the race, and if there's overtime, you can still stay out there on track. That's why you saw this first group come in, and this is the part of the group of machines that came in first on our first green flag pit stop, but had a lot of mistakes. They're hoping for everyone to get out and clean pit stops here, as they're all now getting out of the field, and hopefully they can get up to speed as quick as possible and not lose too much time to the rest of the field.
And let's remind everybody that we have been green flag racing since the first and only caution went back racing on lap 9. Have not seen the caution since. So there is the likelihood this race may not see another yellow. We saw drivers struggling on pit road, speeding and getting penalties. You can't afford one now.
No, you really can. And honestly, our front 4 machines, which is going to be Caden Rush, Oscar Jensen, Zach York, and now Vincent Arthur in the 24 machine. He's now with our front 4. This is your front pack with a mingledness of a couple of lap machines here with them. It's half lead lap cars and half lap machines for this lead pack. Then you have to go back almost 15 seconds to Brandon Andrews that's leading your second group.
Yeah, kind of a bit of good news and bad news for Vincent Arthur. The bad news is the Hendrick Motorsports teammates he was working with earlier on, you're looking at him right there. As you mentioned, they are 14 seconds back, Andrews and Love. The good news is he does have some allies up there with him because we saw the Hendrick Chevrolets and the RCR Chevrolets working together. Newsom and Noble right now running behind that 24. So if he needs someone to help push him if he gets a run, I think those two might be willing to help him.
They might be willing to help him, but I don't know if they have the strength to really push this 24 car up to the lead. Haven't seen it yet once while they've been running. Since we've been seeing Noble and Newsom work together, they've kind of been stalling out once they get up to the 13 machine while they're pushing in the back. Have not tried to get past our leaders just yet. So the question of do they have the power to get another machine up there, still to be seen.
Well, one thing about Talladega, you want to make sure the group you come to pit road with is the group that you leave with. We saw 6 drivers hit pit lane. You look now, there's only 5. Problems for Boyd Hogan. He is now a lap down. Looks like he's actually sustained some damage there on the left rear quarter panel of his number 2 machine. And currently somewhat off the pace, has lost the draft and now off the lead lap in the 20th position.
I'm going back and seeing what exactly happened to the 2 machine. And I'm not really sure what went wrong for the 2. I think maybe, if anything, he might have overshot his pit stall.
Looking at the telemetry, and it does not look like he got a speeding penalty. It was a very quick 12.4 second pit stop. We'll look and see if we can actually find out on the replay what happened to the 2 car, because he did not have that that left rear quarter panel damage when we last saw him coming to pit road. I don't know if maybe someone got into him while trying to get into his pit stall or what happened. Oh, we had an incident that didn't bring out the caution, apparently. Some contact between himself and the 6 of Justin Levine in the tri-oval.
Yeah, and that's coming out of the tri-oval where we have stated that is the loosest part of the track, and that has really costed Boyd Hogan, and honestly might have just ruined his race.
Gracious, the air that 2 car caught when he got from the transition of the infield grass back to the racing surface. Wild ride for Boyd Hogan.
Oh boy. Brandon Andrews is calling it now. It is pit time for that 48 machine leading that second group, and here they come.
You see the onboard with Boyd Hogan as we'll quickly drop now can follow that 48 coming to pit lane along with a number of others. Ty McWhirter is on pit road in the 96. The lap machine of Brendan Burcroft, Ryan Strunk, Taylor Butcher Benjamin, and James Love. Final pit stop potentially of the day for this group.
And right now I'm looking at the times that are being put down from our leaders to that first initial group that is pitted. The difference on time for these drivers, almost a full second. It is 0.8 of a second difference. That group that first pitted, that is being led right now by the 6 of Justin Levine, is going to be, should be about 3 or 4 seconds ahead of this front group that's racing right now.
The Oscar Jensen there taking it 3 wide. Got the lap lead, his first lap lead of the day, and that bonus point going to be very important for Oscar Jensen. If you consider the streak he's been on in the last at least 3 races of finishing down near dead last, I mean, that's a huge bonus point for him in his quest to try and make his way last minute into that round of 8.
Yeah, I mean, Oscar Jensen was kind of in the pool of dark horses for us coming into the playoffs there with Vincent Arthur and Joseph Piscota. I mean, he was having some really good runs there at the end of the season. And then it seemed like the last two races, he started just to falter a little bit, and it carried over into the playoffs. This 47 machine looking for a win or even a top 3 finish would be massive for him to try to carry that forward into next week.
We're still waiting on at least 4 drivers up here in the lead group to come to pit road. The 47, 00, 19, and 24. There is a group as well that we're still waiting to come to pit lane that are lap machines, Newsom, Mullins, Carey, and Noble. But once all 8 of those drivers come to pit lane, they will be good to make it on fuel to the conclusion. But with the fact that we have been green since lap 9, the field is so split up right now, Sam. So it's all coming down to being in the best and fastest group as to whether you're going to win this race or not. If we get a caution, that's all out the window. But right now, it's a very unique type of strategizing at a super speedway.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, it's a toss-up of which group is the fastest. That third group that I'm watching right now that is trying to make their moves forward, that's going to be, believe, led by Greg Newsom. No, Greg Newsom is in this front group because they have not pitted. Of drivers that needed to pit, that's going to be Ty McWhorter. They look like they are struggling. This is for 14th place on the board right now, but we still have cars in front of them that need to pit. Mullins, Carey, and Noble still need to pit, as well as Greg Newsom. But this pack of Ty McWhorter, Brandon Andrews, Butcher Benjamin, and James Love, they're just not going fast enough to catch up to all the drivers in front of them. It's this second pack being led by the 6 and the 9 that have a chance, as they just caught up to Boyd Hogan. We'll see if Boyd Hogan still has speed, but he's about to get absolutely blown by right here. Don't know if he'll be able to stick with this pack, as I think that rear end damage is just a little bit too much, and there might be some suspension damage that is costing him 2 speed.
Yeah, that's what I would be most concerned about, is the suspension damages. I mean, that car caught about 6 feet of air when it got up off of the infield grass and on back to the racing surface there, towards the exit of pit road. And you just saw they just left that 2 car in the dust. And it's interesting too, because at Talladega, a lot of drivers, when they make a mistake, sometimes the caution comes out and it saves them. But right now, you mentioned about guys like Taylor Butcher Benjamin, Ty McWhorter, James Love, Brandon Andrews back there stuck right now from around 14th back to 18th. That goes all the way back to the first round of green flag pit stops, when there were about 6 or 7 that came to pit road. A couple of them made mistakes. A couple of them didn't come out with each other. They were all split up, and now that's why they find themselves back where they are.
And right now, I mean, this is just what happens when you go green for most of this race. These drivers just continuously just get split up because of the issues on pit road. But this is kind of giving me slight flashbacks, Seth, of last week where we were green for most of the race. And then we had a lot of late cautions that continued to breed more and more. And drivers we thought were going to win this race were costing out of this thing. So you can't even count out drivers that are still in the lead lap further back in the field, because a simple caution could be bringing all of them back into this mix.
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, even the fact that these guys up here, they're all trying to run single file. You know they're not going to be that way in the closing stages. Everybody's going to want to be the first one to that checkered flag. So we're going to see them fan back out to double wide and maybe even 3 wide racing. And we saw so many opportunities for error in the early stages of this race when they were close quarters side-by-side racing with each other. So to your point, there is every possibility, even though we've got these little groups peppered all around this racetrack, that we could end up having trouble break out late.
This front pack is not looking good. They have been scrambling all over the place. They've been shifting around who was going to lead it, and now the middle of the group is side by side all over the place. They're just continuously been losing time since we've seen that second group being led by the 6 machine. They have been consistently running either the same lap times or 5/10 faster than the lead pack. It's not looking good for this lead pack being led by Zach York, Caden Rush, Oscar Jensen, and Vincent Arthur. They're going to be losing a lot of time, and they're going to be that second pack that I don't think they have the speed to catch up. As coming into the pits, I believe that's the 24 car all on his lonesome. That's basically throwing the race away.
Yes, it is. That is a horrible situation for Vincent Arthur, but it might be something he had to do because remember, he stayed out under the first caution. So he was at about a 5 to 6 lap deficit to everybody else on fuel. Now having to come to pit road on his own, all these other drivers that were around him, they were able to go a little bit further. So a possible costly error for Vincent Arthur, who came in only 6 points ahead of the cut line.
Vincent Arthur now has to come in, and this front pack, they're going to have to come into the pits here in the next 7 laps, which will put him around lap about 85. So about 10 laps to the end. These drivers are probably going to have to pit, and it might be just a gas and go and try to hope that you're still ahead of the pack that's catching you. But right now, looking at that gap, oh man, it's a massive gap from 3rd to 4th. It's almost a full track length. And if you do a simple gas and go, you might still have the lead.
That's what I was actually wondering, because a lot of these guys that short pitted had to come to pit road, probably had to take on, if not a can and a half, at least a can of fuel. So with that time that they lost, having to take on more fuel could be gained by these drivers that are staying out. They're going to be able to come down and not take on nearly as much fuel as these guys did. So yeah, I was actually wondering about that, if they could maybe even it out or at least still keep the top 3 positions.
Yeah, I mean, based off even coming into pits, the issue, though, is not even the pit road and getting your pit lane speed, because just by doing that and comparatively to everyone else, you would still be up front. The hard part is making sure you can get up to speed and still have that lead, which it takes about a full lap to fully get up to speed, while this second group, they have been just chugging along and slowly chipping away at your lead.
Well, the good news as well, I guess, for these top 3 is drivers that are behind them, they're a lap down. Carey in the 21, Noble in the 8, Mullins in the 13, and Newsom in the 3. They're basically on the same strategy as well. They can stretch it about as far as these top 3, so all that group could come together to pit road, which means that all the drivers that these top 3 have been working with right now will be able to work with them later on, and here we go.
And there they are. Our leaders coming into the pits, lap machine staying out, so it's only going to be a group. Actually, I take the back. It's going to be a group of 4 as Justin Carey follows the other 3 leaders into the pits, and we'll see how long do they stay in the pits. There had to be communication here of how long you're staying in, because if they all make a mistake, they could be losing the lead here, as they have to stay clean. It is a group of 5 trying to run them down, led by the 9 machine in the 9.
It is going to be a gas and go, it looks like, for all these drivers. I'd be a little bit concerned for the 19 of Zach York, because one thing you need to do if you're not going to take on tires is not slide them when you hit pit lane, and that 19 was hard on the brakes hitting that commitment line.
Oh, they're gapped. They are not on one another. I mean, Oscar Jensen and Zach York are, but there is a huge gap between York and Rush that is going to lose them some time. And here comes that second group. They're coming with a head of steam. I don't know if Caden Rush, Zach York, and Oscar Jensen can get up quick enough, because Justin Carey isn't there either.
Well, even if they can get up to speed, they're not lined up quickly enough, and it's going to take them some time to get lined up before they can even get their speed and running single file back up to match up with this group of about 5 or 6. So I think right at this point in time, they could very well be sitting ducks. Also, I want to point out to people as well, you may be seeing some smoke lingering there just before the start-finish line. That is the 12 of Curtis Sawyer, who is sitting on pit road. The smoke pouring out from underneath his number 12. There actually is not a car in trouble on the track. It's just the wind is carrying that smoke over here onto the front straightaway.
Yeah, that was something that freaked me out. I think back on lap 14, I was like, where's the smoke coming from? And then I realized it was Sawyer. And that 12 machine's been on pit road for over an hour now from back on lap number 10. So still struggles there as, oh my goodness, the second group, they've got to figure out how to get by the lap cars that are coming now back onto track.
That's Newsom in the 3, Noble in the 8. Levine's actually going to clear those drivers for the moment. Just up ahead, that bright pink dot, that is Caden Rush. Up ahead of that is Oscar Jensen, and then ahead of that is race leader Zach York. They've not been able to get themselves all lined up yet, as that double zero is losing a little bit of touch. Now he's got the 47. They're going to start racing up here for the lead. That might not be so smart. There's still 14 to go.
No, what they're trying to do is line up the way they want. So they're going to try to get Oscar Jensen or Caden Rush to lead this thing, because somehow Zach York found himself leading the group, which you do not want a damaged machine there. So they're going to stick with Jensen now. But we'll see if Caden Rush is going to make that move on the 47 or just stay where they're at.
Right now, it looks like it's going to be, at the most, 8 drivers that will settle it out for this win, unless we end up having a caution. Vincent Arthur is all by himself in the 9th position. Well, actually, no, he's actually battling for 9th. I thought Mullins was a lap down, but he's currently in 10th. So this little 2-car tandem trying to preserve a top 10 finish. Ty McWhirter's back here in a group of drivers. You've got himself, Andrews, Butcher Benjamin, Love, also Ryan Strunk. You've got the lap machine of Brendan Burcroft here as well.
These guys in the second group are coming. Levine leading the way in the 6. Piscota. Those drivers have been all staying in line with Spencer Tart, Collins, Goonsman. Those machines have just been lingering and waiting for their time to pounce. Catching up to them, I believe that's the 21 of Justin Carey that just tagged on to add another driver to the mix of this lane. They've been staying single file for so long. The question is, they've got to catch up. They're less than 2 seconds away. Once they're within about 7/10 of our leaders, that's when they're starting to touch the draft of that lead pack. So they just need to get to that point. Once they get there, they can easily catch up to our leaders.
If these 6 can latch onto our top 3, we will have 6 playoff contenders in the hunt for the win here today at Talladega. And you think those drivers down below the cut line didn't realize the situation coming in? 3 of those 6 drivers are drivers that were below the cut line coming into this race. If they win today, they leapfrog everybody else and advance into the round of 8.
Ty McWhirter did it last week. Can we see another driver kick out someone that we thought was a favorite to make it to the Final Four? Only time will tell, but we are coming closer and closer to 11 laps to go.
Caden Rush, 16 points ahead of the cut line. Zach York, 8 points ahead of the cut line. The two have worked together all day long, but when push comes to shove, who needs that win more? Oscar Jensen below the cut line by 11 points, would love to get his first win of the season. Those 3 still hold about a little more than a second back to this 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th place battle, but this second group continues to chip away. The question is, are they cutting down enough time each lap to be in the vicinity when it matters most?
Oh yeah, they are cutting it down. They are going to be there just with about 5 to 6 laps to go, which puts us in that danger zone of who cares where you're at, who your friend is, because they are actually, wow, they cut a lot of time that corner. They chipped it down by 4/10 coming out of 3 and 4.
We've only had 1 caution come out today. That was all the way back on lap 5. The question is, will this race be bookended by yellow flags? Because sure as shooting, when this group catches up to the top 3, we're going to see a lot more racing, a lot of side-by-side, and this is the point of the race as well. We saw it earlier on where it nearly led to a couple of wrecks, but the blocking is going to be a lot more aggressive here in the closing stages also.
I mean, this is baffling to look at. I mean, on that first pit stop, we had 2 groups that were pretty split up, being led by Chad Goonsman there for a bit. Dolan Collins was part of that second group, but just because of staying strong, pushing forward, they now have a chance to win this thing after it looked like they were out of it. Here comes the 6th car on the outside.
That second group has finally caught the top 3 with 10 laps to go. Levine takes it 3 wide to the top, but Skoda's going to help push him there.
3 wide, a very dangerous block there by Rush, but it's going to be okay. Levine going to be making that outside line work, dropping down, blocking the middle lane, and here comes Piscota now on the outside line, trying to make that 3rd lane work for the 9 and the 10.
He's got drafting help from Tart and Collins on that top side. Here comes the inside line back again as Caden Rush and Zach York work together, stuck in the middle. That's Jensen and Levine. It's going to be Piscota who's going to clear for the top spot. Now into second goes Tart.
Piscota, a driver that is almost in a must-win situation here today because he's so far back in points. He needed a top 5 finish. A win would be massive for this 9 machine to push his ticket in the next round.
Still a long ways to go here, though. It'll be 8 laps when they hit the line this time by, as now Spencer Tart jumps up to the outside. Mentioned he's the only driver that has 2 top 5 finishes at the super speedways this season. Stewart Haas Racing already has a win at Talladega, courtesy of Carl Dodson. Can Tart complete the sweep here this season for the Stewart Haas Racing Fords?
It's less than 10 laps to go. Whoever your friends are, you better hope you're close to them. But really looking at it, everyone's pretty split up from who they once were working with just 5 laps ago.
And let's not forget, too, that group of 5 or 6, they were all being friendly for the moment for one common purpose, so they all could be up there with a hunt for the victory. Now the alliances have broken off, and you got to try and make some new friends here in the closing stages.
Just to let everyone know, the 21 car that's just lingering in the back there in this front pack is a lap car, not a driver hunting for a position.
But he's also the first car 1 lap down, so he would be in line if a wreck took place ahead of him to be back on the lead lap with a shot of maybe being back in the hunt for winning this race.
You talked about Zach York and his blocks. Caden Rush has been making some aggressive blocks. You are not going to have someone being nice to you as we're inching closer and closer to 5 laps to go. You might be spinning out if you make too late of a block.
And we see a couple of drivers bring their left sides close to that double yellow line, the back straightaway. Remember, that is out of bounds. You cannot go down there and advance your position unless you are forced. And we may have a situation like that, the way these drivers are pinching each other here in the corners.
I'm liking Goonsman in the 22. Let everyone else be racy. Make your move at the end. Don't risk your race now when you aren't even coming to the white flag.
Now, right now, we would, if we had a caution, probably get a shootout, maybe a green-white checkered in scheduled regulation. However, if we end up having a caution somewhere within the next 2 or 3 laps, I would say we'd be looking at some overtime.
We're wrecking to the inside. Goodsman was involved as well as the 47. They're still on the apron, so no yellow being thrown. Still green.
Oscar Jensen's car comes to a stop. His potential of moving on to the round of 8 may be over as he has to teleport to pit road. Chad Gunisman in the 22 has lost this lead group as well. He's drifted back to 8th. I don't think he necessarily has got himself in a situation where he's going to retire out of the race, but he did take a hard shot with the left side of his car.
I mean, they just need a yellow instantly if they want a chance to get repairs done and get back out there. But with the fact that we are still green and that caution happened off course, that is why we are still green at the moment. Spencer Tart leads the way. Levine going to be in second, pushing him. And on the outside, you've got York and Rush.
We only had 8 cars up here in the hunt for this victory. We are now down to 6 as we're closing in on 4 laps to go. Tart on the bottom. He's got Levine, Piscota, and Collins top side. It is York trying to push Caden Rush.
Right now, they just got to stay in line, stay ready. You've already taken out 2 of your competitors that kind of took themselves out. Right now, Goonsman, that is so disappointing to see because he was really in the safest spot, he thought. It just was a random car came down and took him out with them.
Now the question is, are we looking maybe at 3 teams of 2, the 10 and the 6, the 40 and the 19, and the 9 and the 27? Possibly going to be the drafting duos we see here in the closing stages?
I mean, you really never know. 4 laps to go, going to be coming to 3 laps to go. Everyone's kind of in a wait mode. You've already seen and shown what's in your cards, what type of moves you might be thinking about making here, and what moves you've shown earlier in the race that work. It's now survive until the final lap, and then make your move. You got to make sure we get to the white flag because once we're there, the race will end.
Not sure what's going on there with Dalton Collins. He keeps drifting down towards the apron here on the back straightaway and out of turn 4. I don't know if he's just lying in wait to try and size these guys up. Maybe try and pull a Boyd Hogan and make a move on his own. Joseph Piscota is trying to make some moves himself, but he's got nobody to push him.
Now remember, we're still watching this front pack, but there's still the second pack that can easily bring out a caution. They're over the radio, really talking it over, trying to figure out how to get everyone single filed up and get moving, but they're too far back to even have a chance to battle for the lead, but still to bring out a caution, they're there.
Yeah, that second group is about 30 seconds back from this lead pack. As up front, Spencer Tart now with a shove from Joseph Piscota trying to go back to the lead. 2 laps to go when they come through this tri-oval to the start-finish line. Both cars, the 10 and the 9, really squirrely out of that corner.
2 laps to go. Their goal, make it to the next lap. Then when the white flag's out, it's all about who's up front. And that's when the big moves are going to be happening. And that's when you're going to be figuring out where you got to be placed. Back in that second group, there's a lot of contenders that are hoping for good finishes. And they need to finish on top of that front row, which is the battle for 7th place. But this front group that are going on, Piscota looking to punch his ticket forward, as well as Spencer Tart, Caden Rush. Caden Rush, we know is going to do well next week, but he wants to make sure it's secured here today.
Ooh, little bump there from Spencer Tart to the 9.
Oh,
Who got him
do it again.
Piscota fishtailing. He keeps it straight. Looks like we may make it back here to the white flag, but how many cars in your shot right now will be coming back to the checkers in one piece?
Tart has been wiggling as well as Piscota through the trial of the last 3 laps. I don't see how they survive it to the line. I think it's going to be one of the cars on the outside.
Here's Piscota looking up to the top side. Who's gonna go with him? Levine left the door open. Here comes Tart shooting up the middle. He forces York up to the wall. Piscota, there they go.
Piscota up in the lead. You got York, Tart. I think it's just gonna be a 2-car battle. As you got up front, it's gonna be Piscota, York, and Tart all on top of one another.
Gonna have to make that 9-car high, wide, and handsome here as York tries to get to the outside. He is there. It may be a drag race between the 9 and 18. They're rubbing
goes down. He's coming back up.
And he's gonna save it, but Zach York, the door banging is gonna get him the win tonight at Talladega. He advances into the round of 8, his first win of the season.
Zach York, the driver we stated who had saved so many times with late blocks, people giving him time and space, somehow, at the end, door banged his way to a victory.
Zach York, who was probably one of the few drivers up there in the lead group that had damage after getting into the back of Caden Rush coming to pit road, had the battle scars already, sustained a few more there through the tri-oval, but how he was able to even get the run to the outside there and fit between the 9 of Piscota and the outside wall coming down to the tri-oval, I'm not sure.
Leading that second group of cars is going to be the 24 Vincent Arthur that needed a solid day. James Love in 8th, Ryan Strunk in 9th. And, a lot of drivers that were hoping for better days. Chad Glinsman back in 13th place. Boyd Hogan, we knew he was solid in points-wise. He'll be in 17th, but Oscar Jensen, this is an awful day for that 47.
Absolutely. I mean, Jensen came into this race looking, with the way he was running up there inside the top 5, was looking like he was making a very good case for himself to be moving on to the round of 8, depending on what happened next week at the Charlotte Roval, but caught up there in an incident. And the tough break, I think, for him was the fact it didn't bring out a yellow. The yellow not coming out did not save him, give him the opportunity to be able to repair that race car. And there's a lot of drivers now that look like they may be heading into next week in must-win situations. Not only the 47 of Jensen, but I think you got to put the 20 of Chris Hansen in that category as well.
Yeah, and Hansen's kind of been on the back foot all season long, and someone we haven't seen finish in the top 10 or top 5 recently in the last probably 15 races. So this 20 machine needing a very solid day. I mean, a win practically, but it's going to be hard. There's a lot of very quick road course racers who's got to be beat out next week, and other drivers that are hungry to win their way in.
And what about Chad Gunnisman? I mean, he came into this race only 10 points ahead of the cut line, and he's going to be finishing in the 13th position. A lot of drivers that were behind him in points having good runs here today, so he could find himself in a bit of a situation points-wise when we get to the Roval next week as well. And I find it really ironic here, Sam, because the first round of the playoffs was completely swept by Fords. So far here in round 2, it's been Camrys that have gone to victory lane. Can they complete the sweep next week at the Charlotte Roval?
It's going to be tough to see, and we can't wait to see what the Roval is going to bring for us. But we do have some drivers in the waiting room. We've got third place finisher Piscota, Joseph Piscota in the 9, ready for some talks.
Hey, Joseph, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Wow, what a wild last couple of laps here at Talladega. It came down between you and the 19, down the back straightaway, all the way over to the tri-oval. We saw you use the door, try and put him up there towards the wall, trying the side draft. What little bit more could you have done to hold him off?
I don't know. I mean, I wanted to be nice to him. I mean, I was going to pinch him, but I wasn't going to fence him. And it came off the wall and just destroyed my right side, I guess. I guess that's what I get for being nice. But I know I had to win this. Did a good job. Pitch strategy, everything. Everyone did a great job. At Legacy, working on the setup, it was really fast. And, just looking over it, I probably just should have blocked harder. Or just, I don't know, fence him. I don't know. I tried everything I could.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're right there in the vicinity. You talked about kind of being in a must-win situation coming into tonight's race. But, I mean, you still bring it home in the third position. With some of the other drivers struggling here tonight, you may have a shot at the Charlotte Roval next week. So what's your outlook heading into the road course?
Uh, I'm not too good of a road course racer, so I'm gonna put a lot of practice in it. Hopefully, we can do something. I knew I could have capitalized on a couple of people who had problems, and I really did not want to wreck. I wanted to, if I wasn't going to win, I wanted the best points position I could, and we almost got that. But I was really looking forward to hopefully winning that, and I put myself in a great position. And coming off 4, I guess I was too nice. That one will haunt me though.
Well, still a great performance for you here this evening. A third place run at Talladega, based on the fact that everybody was so spread out, just to be up there in the vicinity to be able to have a shot at winning this race, an accomplishment in and of itself. Joseph, we're going to let you do some shout outs now.
Yeah, thank you guys for putting on a good broadcast. I got to give a shout out to, the VFW, Soda Guys, iRacing, iFlag, Shorbers Racing Graphics, FSM Customs, and, Abiding Love Memorial Urns. And, I guess we'll get them next week. And I also got to thank A through Z Overhead Doors for sponsoring this race as well. So we'll see what we got next week.
That's Joseph Piscotta. He brings it home third place here tonight at Talladega. Congrats on a great run. We hope that you can continue up this momentum next week at the Charlotte Roval. And let's get our second place finisher, Spencer Tart. Hey, Spencer, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got me?
Yes, sir.
Well, man, that 10 car looked like it was flying here tonight. We saw you work your way from mid-pack to the front multiple times. We saw you in 2-car tandems by yourself with another driver on that outside line, bypassing 3-4 cars. What is it about this particular racetrack where you're capable of doing something like that?
Well, the way that runs are built here, I mean, everything is all about air and air control. As long as your car is halfway decent, which, I mean, the car was all right. It wasn't great. I mean, there was 10 other cars that were way better than me, but I mean, it was good enough to make moves. As long as you understand the air and the way it's going to happen, you can make some runs.
Obviously coming into this race behind the cut line, you were 16 points behind the cut line. Did you feel that coming into Talladega, it was a must-win situation, or were you just looking to survive with a decent finish and then try and finish it out when we get to Charlotte Roval next week?
I went out here with the intentions to either win it or wreck it, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I was either going to put it in victory lane or tear the car up, and I didn't really do either one of those, so I don't know.
Well, Spencer, I mean, nonetheless, a great run for you here today. I don't think that 10 car fell outside of the top 10 all day long. You spent most of the day up inside of the top 5, had a shot there at the end to be able to go to victory lane. We're going to do some shout outs now.
Yeah, thank you for the main sponsor on the car tonight, Gator Hater. Thank you, Palmetto Homeland Security. Thank you to Anthony's Lock Service, Muley Fanatic, everybody that helps me out here and makes it possible for me. So thank you to all those guys. Thank you to everybody at Legacy Esports. I mean, there's Boyd Hogan helping me out a lot lately. So thanks to all those guys.
Well, Spencer Tart had 2 top 5 finishes in the 3 super speedway races coming into tonight. He now has 3 in the 4 this season. Congrats on a great run, Spencer, and we look forward to seeing what you can do next week at the Charlotte Roval, trying to point your way into the round of 8.
Thank you.
And we'll now go down to victory lane, where Zach York celebrates his first victory of the season here in the Veterans of Foreign War Cup Series. Hey, Zach, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys. What's up?
Well, man, I mean, you didn't come into this race in a must-win situation, but you now head into the Charlotte Roval knowing that you're going to be advancing to the round of 8. How much of a load does that take off your mind?
It's a big stress reliever for sure. Definitely needed a win here for this number 19. We've been running consistent. We really haven't had the speed most of the season, but I think these play tracks really are able to give us a chance to come up here and win. We just need speed for the next few races to get into the championship forward.
Obviously your first win of the season here in the Veterans of Foreign War Cup Series. So now knowing that you're going to be advancing into the round of 8, what's the type of things you're going to be working on when you get to the Charlotte Roval next week?
Just try and survive, try and maybe get another win. Who knows? I haven't been terrible at road courses. So I look for a good top 5 finish. That's what I hope for. If not a win, always look for wins, if anything. Strive for greatness.
We talked about the fact the Fords swept round 1. So far, you're continuing the streak for the Camrys here in round 2. And obviously a tremendous way to be able to advance your way into the round of 8, taking a checkered flag and a thriller here tonight at Talladega Super Speedway. Zach, we're going to let you do some shout-outs now.
Yeah, I want to thank JGR, Chris Hansen, Taylor Butcher Benjamin, Grayson Sullivan, Caden Rush, Flying Arrows, and Michael Carey Media, all Flying Arrows sponsors. Thanks for helping me throughout the season. It's been awesome. Everyone back at Flying Arrows, Nazi, Ben, Chris, Austin, everyone that helps put the sets together every week. They're awesome. Thank you.
Well, Zach York finally puts his number 19 Toyota Camry in victory lane for the first time this season. It's here tonight at the high banks of Talladega Superspeedway. He joins Ty McWhirter in the round of 8. Congrats on a great job. Well performed here tonight. And we look forward to seeing what you can do in the round of 8 in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you.
And that is going to do it here tonight from Talladega Superspeedway. It's going to be a very interesting point situation when we get to the Charlotte Roval next week to find out who of the 12 are going to be advancing into the round of 8. We already know 2, maybe 3, Sam. A lot of drivers down near that cut line, though, heading into next week.
Yeah, a lot of them we're going to be seeing a lot of drivers such as Caden Rush trying to get that win. Boyd Hogan possibly trying to just get more wins onto his belt, but can't wait for next week.
Cannot wait at all, as it's going to be a wild one. We appreciate everybody tuning in here tonight to our race from Talladega. We're not done. We're going to be swapping right over to FTF Grand National Series Racing. Their playoffs continue on at Nashville Short Track. That's going to be taking place in just mere seconds, so keep it here on Flatout Racing Network. Sam, once again, thanks for joining me, and we'll be right back in just a few moments, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a pleasure. It's time for us to refuel, get ready for this upcoming race.
So we will see you guys in mere moments, but thanks here this evening for tuning in to the Veterans of Forum War Cup Series broadcast brought to you here by Flatout Racing Network. We'll see you guys next Saturday night.